head of ABC News in America. He said to me, Gideon, if you don't ask, you don't get. My name's Gideon Joseph, and I'm the CEO and founder of Transatlantic. We are a communications and PR agency for early stage technology businesses, primarily based in London, but also some in America. And really what we're trying to do is build the first agency relationship that a lot of these early stage businesses have, where they have these wonderful, exciting ideas that have been gestated in the heads of founders. Lots of young people who have great ideas. They've often raised money to build out a product or a service they think is going to change the world. And we try and help them by building some brand awareness. We try and get them to be known for something in the right way. So we help them think about their story. Why do they exist? What's their purpose in the world? We try and get them to become a bit more famous. So try and get them in the media, in television, in newspapers, on the radio, or on a podcast. And we also help them with a network. And we try and think about who could we introduce them to that would make them accelerate faster in terms of their growth. My responsibilities are kind of diverse. There's about 25 of us in total, and I have a lot of senior people who work in the business. And I'm really, I suppose, at the end of the day, an evangelist and a salesman for what I believe we do and why it's good. And second of all, I'm also a networker in that I have to find new business opportunities. So I'm kind of a business development executive as well. But I also have to do a lot of the kind of more day-to-day jobs of managing people, managing the teams, making sure that teams are happy and feeding back. And so in a way, I kind of look at myself as a bit like a pilot of a very complicated plane, which is it can run on autopilot, but it's much better when my hands are usually kind of driving the plane, making sure the throttle's at the right level, checking all the gauges, making sure that any bumps or lumps ahead of the game are going to be really important. And you know, there was a really famous book written by a venture capitalist called Ronald Cohen called The Second Bounce of the Ball. And my most important mantra when running a business is not to think about what the first bounce is, not what happens tomorrow, but what happens on the second bounce. What is my business going to look like in 3 months or 6 months or in 9 months? And I think the one thing I've learned about being a leader is always think about the second bounce of the ball, not just the first. What I love about it is the fact that I can call myself who I truly am. And alongside that comes freedom to effectively expand my interests and expand my areas of knowledge. No one can say no to me. No one is saying I can't do this. So there's an enormous sense of freedom. And I'm always been one of these people who likes to learn lots of new things. I'm not a great reader of fiction, but I love reading the news, which we'll come on to about why I became a journalist. I love reading new facts, new ideas. I'm always driving people crazy with articles that I've read that I want to share. And I think in a way, what I realized is that entrepreneurialism is a reflection of that curiosity about the world. The negative side, if that's the right word, is that it comes with risk. It comes with degrees of stress about the fact that ultimately no one is going to necessarily look after you if your business isn't doing well. There's a degree to which you have to deal with personal anxiety about challenges that might be facing the business and not necessarily convey those to other people who work for you or even people in your own family. I was fundamentally most interested in understanding and getting to know different people and what makes them tick and what makes them interesting as stories that people want to watch. And so while I was interested in the craft of television, i.e. the shot looking good, the lighting, that wasn't what excited me as much as I was really interested in talking to you or talking to a president or talking to a politician or talking to a teacher about their story. And I think that in a way, and we'll come on to it, has led me to where I am today, which is why I work with founders. Because what I'm really interested in talking to the businesses about today is understanding their ideas, but also thinking about, do I like and want to work with a person who's generated this business? Do they have some of the skills that you need in order to be a good leader? Magnanimity, humility, Are they prepared to make mistakes and not get angry about it? How do they act under pressure? How do they cope with some of the challenges of the market? And in a way, that was the realization I had when I started my business, which was fundamentally every business is a story. It could be in the papers, it could be in the media, but actually what I was really interested in was getting to work with great founders and great leaders and to see what they look like up close and how could I help mold them in some way or shape them or help them think about their leadership skills, because they're often at the beginning of their journeys. I think the biggest one that I had was that I wasn't good enough, as in there was always someone who was better than me. So I didn't get onto the BBC graduate trainee scheme. And I thought, oh God, there's no way I'm ever going to make it as a journalist. At the time, it was a huge thing to get onto that scheme. It's very successful route to becoming a journalist in the BBC particularly, but ITN ran them, Sky ran them. And I remember thinking, maybe I'm just not good enough. Maybe I just don't have what it takes. And I was like academically successful. I hoped I was quite personable. I watched a lot of news. As you can tell, I was kind of passionate about it. I thought, bugger, if I can't do this, when maybe there are just too many good people out there. But in a way, what I realized is that, there are, as it says, many routes to success. And you have to find that belief in you that you can write a letter, write an email, find a way to get to the person that you believe is going to give you that chance, and think that if I give it the best possible shot at writing a great letter, befriending them on LinkedIn, messaging them through a social media platform, or simply finding a way to circumvent obstacles, the chances of you succeeding are going to be higher than doing nothing at all. So I think there are a couple of things to say, which is there's a principle that a very well-known TV producer once told me. He now is the head of ABC News in America. He said to me, Gideon, this was about us booking interviews with famous people. He said, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I remember thinking, he's right. If we don't send the letter, we're never going to get an interview with Bill Clinton or Barack Obama. And that was a massive moment of my life, just going, don't ask, don't get. What are they going to do? Delete it? So what? Don't ask, don't get. They might go, oh, this kind of cool letter asking from a random Brit in London, asking for an interview with the president. Why not? And I think there's a degree to which that you have to therefore kind of overcome that sense of they're never going to respond to me. They're never going to kind of believe in that. And I think the practical advice that I would give is that you have to do some diligence around the specificity of what it is that you're writing about. So if it was, for example, I was writing about trying to get a job on This Morning, I would be absolutely spending the time looking at it, watching it, giving them ideas of things that you could do to improve, thinking of other guests that they might have. Because what that demonstrates to the person who's on the receiving end of an email or a letter, whether it's the editor or the HR director, is that you've gone over and above a generic letter. You've said to this show, I know this show as well as you do. In fact, I watch it more often than you do. And I know that I could add value in some way to this show. And I've gone to the trouble of finding out the email address of the editor, which, by the way, you can probably find pretty easily online. I've gone to the trouble of writing something that's a thoughtful, coherent piece of content. And I've also gone to the trouble of really observing and thinking about the show. And I think that, again, it goes to your point, which is your chances of then getting a job off the back of it, of course, they're small. They're absolutely small. But the fundamentals are you've given it a really strong chance of you getting noticed. And I think there are other ways in which you can do that now in today's world that's driven by technology. I think LinkedIn is a really, really, really strong platform for doing that. I'm always now surprised at how many A-level students or grads are putting their own LinkedIn profiles. And you know what? I'm really impressed by some of them. They'll say, I've just graduated with this, I've done this work experience, these are the ideas I'm looking at. And you know what? That excites me because it shows that someone, as you say, have gone to the trouble of thinking about their personal brand, and they've taken on the job of creating a platform. They're proud of what they've achieved thus far, and they're using it as a conduit to build their own network. And I think that's so brilliant that they're doing that. And I think the flip side of social media, the negatives, the challenges around it, is that actually these platforms, particularly LinkedIn, give the most incredible democratizing element to say, I exist, I matter in the world, here's my story, and you can't ignore me. And people can build their own followings. They can become their own publishers to a network. And that, again, is all about, actually, if we think about it, it's about risk mitigation, that no one will notice me. In other words, when I send my CV or email to the editor this morning, I put my LinkedIn profile. Oh, wow, this guy's got a LinkedIn profile. Wow, he's got 1,000 followers. And I think people have to go in with an optimism about the fact that they can succeed in these industries, because I think things are changing. And I think it all does come down to, as you said, you've got to lean in and commit to still being the best possible version of you that you possibly can.